This Vagabond chapter is making me consider this one of the best manga ever created. Let me tell you a story on how my life changed completely after reading chapter 102 of Vagabond's story, and how this one chapter can absolutely change your life too. It is very simple, but yet so intricate as well. After a very long day of my stupid pre-calc class, I picked up my tablet, put it in vertical view, and pulled up Vagabond on the late Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Then, as I sat in my room reading chapter 102, I stumbled upon this panel. I felt as if I had read this before. I felt so conflicted internally, but also free in a sense. I felt whole, that there is nothing that I lack in myself internally. And I say internally because Musashi has his eyes closed, meaning he is shut off from the outside world. Everything external to him is not being used to determine himself. Instead, he has his eyes closed, calm, peaceful. In the void of darkness that we see when we close our eyes, there's an infinity that never ends. And because this is something we see closing our eyes, it's within us and not outside of us. Then the quote comes, "Do you see how infinite you are?" Instead of relying on things from the outside world to determine if you have worth, like finally reaching a goal, money, being married, or etc., we look within ourselves to see how infinite we are. Don't get me wrong, having goals is definitely a good thing, because then what purpose would you have in life? For example, my goal is to be a full-time YouTuber. But rather than placing our worth in the goal itself and achieving it, we can free ourselves from that pressure because we are in the process of striving for the goals we have. Yes, I know this is a lot to analyze, but sit with me because this can change your life completely. Let's dive into Musashi to further our understanding of the idea of how infinite we are. His goal that is making him stronger because he is striving for it, but it can also be holding him back. We first see Takiso holding himself back. All he wants is to be the strongest swordsman in the world, no matter the consequences he faces in this path, and that means he doesn't care if he dies. We see him fight off bandits after him countless of times. He slaughters and kills everybody, and he believes this is what it means to truly be strong. There is some truth to it because he survives these countless of battles, but how much is he willing to sacrifice and pay to achieve this goal? He kills many people and is left with the question by Talcon, what does it mean to be strong? Since Talcon basically calls him out and says he's the weakest person in the village. Here is where we see him change a lot. Before, Takiso was head first into action without thinking of anything. But now, Miyamoto Musashi pursues his goal of being the strongest swordsman in the world while questioning everything. He questions himself, his goal, the people he meets in his journey, and etc. This act alone of questioning everything is huge for him. Is a huge step to becoming wiser and becoming stronger and having a more fulfilling life. Because he questions himself so much, he is gravitated to finding answers. He realizes, hey, maybe I'm not that strong and I shouldn't be ignorant or arrogant to this path in my life. Instead, he thinks, let me pursue this goal with some form of questioning. This character development is insanely strong because we get this demon beast who enjoyed being called the demon beast, transforming into someone unrecognizable to us. He is slowly turning into a respectable swordsman, philosopher. Musashi has his goal of becoming the strongest swordsman possible in the world. He chases this idea of being invincible under the sun, being the strongest warrior in the world. We see this idea stems from his father in the story, which his father is mentioned to be immensely strong because he was one of the only people to ever defeat the Yoshaka teacher, I believe, and only few people knew of him. You see though, this very idea of being the strongest warrior is what holds him back. You may be saying, how does this hold him back though? It's a very ambitious goal and it's very admirable to see someone chase this huge goal. They have to go through such lengths to try and achieve this goal. And yes, I agree with you, but then in reading this, it seems like there is a flaw in this very goal that Musashi has. It's hunting down this Yagyu master because he believes what determines one's strength is if you can take that person's life. And we see him thinking about this during the manga in the panels, questioning everything about his life thus far. So he goes to the Yagyu temple to try and kill this old master that Akimi is taking care of. We see he is able to fight off and sneak past the other 4 swordsmen below the master and has the opportunity to kill him. He did the hardest part, which was sneaking past these 4 incredible strong swordsmen and getting to where the master is in his bed, in his quarters by himself. And he is so close to saying that he is the strongest alive because he is so close to killing him. He has his sword ready and armed. He stands there and remembers his father. He remembers his father saying that he was the invincible Musashi, that there was no equal to him in power. And Musashi has the same goal as his father, but he sees there is flaws in his father and in this absurd goal too. He chases the idea of being invincible so much that his father put a lot of fear and pressure on himself. He was constantly trying to live up to this title of invincible, that he was paranoid of dying and losing in a battle. Heck, it even states that he turned against his own blood, his own son, Musashi. This was just beautiful character development by Musashi because he is realizing that this title of invincible that he took from his father is leading him down a dark path and makes him question what invincible even means. But there is one thing for sure, and Musashi knows that the old man in front of him that is dying has this feeling, this title of being invincible. He feels the presence of the old man being so poignant. He struggles so much between killing the old man to prove he is strong. This is the flawed sense of strength that he has from his past self, but ultimately decides not to do it, that this is not the way. The old man awakes from his sleep and realizes this dude is not his son, but Akume's friend that she's always talking about from her past. The old man even says to himself that he is very impressed by him, by Musashi, but he senses that bloodthirst in him, that he's a dangerous man. He is still in the flawed version of himself, trying to chase this title, and he still thinks that killing an opponent is what true strength is, when that could be further from the truth. Musashi, in awe of the master swordsman, asks him, what does it mean to be invincible? He answers with such a simple response, but it has so much depth to it. Invincible is merely a word. The more you think about it, the more you squint your eyes in desperation to see, the more obscure the answer becomes. If something is too obscure to see, then try closing your eyes. Well, do you see how infinite you are? Right here is just where I sat in awe for a good while. Honestly, at first, not really understanding the true meaning of these words, of these sentences, but I just knew this was a huge, significant part of the story for Musashi and for us, the readers, to interpret as well. There can be so many ways to explain this, so let's explore them, because I bet you've heard it before, but you really need to understand it so it can change your perception of life. Musashi is bound to a goal, a word, and that is invincible. But in doing this, can you see how limiting that word is? It is one word out of hundreds of thousands of words that exist in the world. Musashi's problem is he is so fixated on this goal of invincible that he limits his approach to the world and his goal. He cannot see anything around this goal of being invincible that it prevents him from growing faster, stronger, and better in being a swordsman. Here, we, the audience, and him have to realize, like, yes, having goals and trying to improve is good, but do not blind yourself with these goals, man. It can completely stop you in the way because you want to achieve this one thing, that it narrows your vision to one thing only. It can narrow your mind and your body completely when you could be so much more in this life. You must approach these goals with a sense of freedom. In Musashi's case, of course, he can pursue this goal of being stronger, but to not let it completely take over him. Why? Because it can lead you to do actions that limit yourself and your mind. He was about to kill this old master swordsman who was on his deathbed because he thinks, or he used to think, that being strong meant killing all your opponents. This was a very flawed mindset, trying to become this title of invincible under the sun that his father passed down to him. And he has clearly realized that this is wrong and it is very limiting. Approach these goals with a sense of freedom. In Musashi's case, he can approach being stronger, of course, but not to let it completely take over him. Why? Because it can lead you to do actions that limit yourself. He was about to kill the Master Yagyu swordsman because his old sense of self wanted to become invincible, and he believed that meant killing his opponent. That is the only way you can determine if you're strong, if you kill your opponent and you survive. Tying this to you see how infinite you are is a little more tricky to do, but I will try my best nonetheless. When Musashi closes his eyes, he no longer looks and relies on the outside world to prove his strength. The goal of being invincible is is limiting, and we can see that he can be more than just that. How? The master of the Yagu clan is strong and invincible, so why can't Musashi do this too? In my opinion, his closing of eyes must have to do with some idea of meditation, but I haven't read that far to see if he actually meditates later in the story. But why do I think this? Well, when you're in meditation, you're thinking of the present moment. You're focusing on your breathing, and you close yourself from the outside world. From my experience of being in a deep meditative state, I truly feel infinite. Why? Because I feel free of all these external forces and the pressures the world is constantly putting on us. I am able to reflect on my thoughts and ideas to see the flaws of them. I realize I don't need these external forces to determine my self-worth, my value. I am enough here in the now. Now, as to why I end up with these feelings of being worthy enough and finally not letting these external factors like my career, my financial situation, being in a relationship or not, I don't let any of those factors determine my self-worth. Just like how most people are focused on all these outside things to make them happy. After being in a deep meditative state, I don't feel that anymore. And I can't explain why I feel that, but that's just my 2 cents about it all. I know this was a very deep convo, but I just really enjoyed this chapter so much. I just felt so connected to it. At first, very confused, but then enlightened and not as confused anymore, having to explore it more and really think about it. If you enjoyed this video, you might enjoy the video I made on Chainsaw Man. Chainsaw Man's biggest lesson. It's about trying to recognize when someone in your life is not good for you or for anyone in that matter. If you watched this video all the way through, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I will see you on the next one. Have a great day, everybody, and peace.